First, I believe, is to review the minutes from the last meeting. So any suggestions, comments, concerns, deletions, corrections to be made, speak out, forever hold your peace.
Very good.
Motion to approve the minutes.
So moved.
Okay. I'd like to offer that we should strike everything from the record that Director Ressler added at last. No, just kidding. So we got a motion over here. Director Ressler.
I seconded, didn't I?
Oh, second by Ressler. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Okay, great. Let's move on. Okay, so ends policies. We had a spirited discussion about this the last time. Hopefully the highlighted changes in the ends policies are reflective of what we were getting at. Does anybody get a chance to look at them?
Yeah.
The big thing was getting the progress with the segregated subgroups added in there. And the good thing is that, obviously with us going through those ends policies on a rotating basis, getting that statement in before each sub area is good, because then I think as we go through that long after I'm gone, when y'all are still clamoring through those 2 years from now, you'll still be focused on that, hopefully.
The administrators understand what we're trying to get at. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Just making sure.
Oh, one of the nice things
We
is...
can have a nice conversation, but then if it doesn't translate,
There you go.
Can I make some suggestions for the databases
Please do.
under each section?
Sure.
That goes around. Oh, man. She's kind of a crazy. I'm tired. So for reading, math, and science, I'm just suggesting that your first bullet, that we specify that we'll measure that annual achievement by not only the national percentile rank, but the percent of proficient students. So those are two different ways of looking at that data. National percentile rank gives us really an average of the class, but high kid can sometimes hide a bunch of low performing students. So if you get that percent of students proficient, then that kind of covers that as well. And then the second one, I'll just go through them all and you can talk about it as a whole. Just adding that on average achievement will increase at a rate you had greater than, so I'm just adding that equal to or greater than, which is the same really as what you had in the first one. At the first one you said as high as or higher than, so I was just going to suggest that we, on the second one, say equal to or greater than the national average. So in those two, I think you're getting a really nice picture of the average of the group and then the average growth. So not only point in time kind of compared like third grade to third grade to third grade, but then the growth in that cohort. And then I added the third one there too, because I think that matches our discussion and matches what your goals are for annual achievement goals too. That the achievement gaps between those subgroups, and again, looking at that in two different ways, because we haven't, I don't think yet, looked at that in two ways. We haven't looked at that as an average national percentile rank of a subgroup. We've only looked at that as percent proficient of subgroups. So we could look at that two different ways, and that will try to decrease those gaps on a year-by-year basis. And then I would just recommend eliminating those bottom two, the quartile reports. Here's the only district I've seen that does those, and I don't know how much those are understood maybe by the community. I don't know if we're going to be able to get those when we move to Smarter Balanced. I can't get those disaggregated.
And maybe just for history, the AEA used to do those for the district, and so I think that's why they were in there when the policy was written, because it was a report that was generated annually from the AEA. As the AEA started to shrink a little bit and they reduced staff, that person retired and they did not replace them. I think that's why those were in there to start with. I think that was really idiosyncratic to the Grant Wood AEA.
So they were looking at the average student in the bottom, distributed amongst all students, and then the top quarter.
Mm-hmm. And we've given you that information, and that looks like a chart like that, but everybody really pays attention to it, and it's really hard to move those numbers when you're talking about a quartile for each.
Sure.
And I'm recommending those for reading, math, and science because I'm hoping that the change to Smarter Balance will still be able to get all of that. So Smarter Balance will take care of reading and math, and then science will have to be taken care of by something else, but it probably will be ACT Aspire. And then for writing and social studies, we aren't, at this point, have plans to do a district-wide assessment. So we either eliminate those pieces, which I don't know that you want to do, or we just put in something simple that says that we'll try to, we'll increase annual achievement, and we'll just be looking for ways that we can demonstrate that measure, whether it's through academic grades or ACTs or something like that.
And eliminating the quartile discussion in writing as well.
Yes. In fact, I don't know that we've been giving you that data probably for a while. I didn't give that to you this year because I couldn't.
Probably
I couldn't.
3 years, I want to say.
Do you
when we-
foresee any problem with that?
No.
So technically, we're doing reading, writing, and fine arts right now, but this is great because if we start the language, if we start the language change now, we can mimic that when we do math and science, which is next year. Is that right?
But is this an ends policy, can't we?
I guess we could, it's just, if we're overachievers, we could.
I'm just saying, if we have it here, and we're on our agenda to do ends policy.
Well,
Yeah, I'm recommending that we make those changes for reading, math, and science.
okay. Yeah, for the ends policies, we're doing reading, writing, fine arts, and then Appendix 4, I think it is that the other ends, that's the other ends policies. So it's kind of all intertwined, we could do that. I think we can get away with that.
Is there gonna be, are we breaking some policy or something?
No, that's the only thing, I was just saying if, I get nervous about us doing stuff in committee that the board doesn't tell us to, but if we can put it under the purview of we were looking at Appendix 4 as well, then sure, let's do it. Let's do it all. Let's get it done. I like
We
it.
just gonna have a note for when we have to review those sections next that we didn't look at on this date.
Sure.
Would we need to get rid of the note at the bottom then, since
Yeah, so there's that
the asterisk?
asterisk at the bottom that I would recommend deleting too.
Okay. I think that's awesome. I think this will make it better, cleaner, and actually something that we can get paid for.
Yeah,
Go team.
right.
Any concerns, Director Ressler?
No.
Director Deloach?
I'm always concerned.
Perfect. Perfect. Great, and thank you for having it written up. That makes it really easy for
You're killing
him
it.
to make that translate into reality.
I can do that.
So yeah, let's just include that as if we were covering all the ends policies with under Appendix 4, and then roll with it if that's okay. Great suggestions, thank you. The 500 series. A light reading here. Shall we start at the top?
Sure.
Now, a lot of these, the verbiage comes straight out of and has been checked with IO code, so there's not a whole lot of changes to make. There's a couple suggestions that I came across, but I'm interested to see what you guys say. This is my second time going through the 500s. So, 501.1, the resident and non-resident students. Any suggestions there, folks? Otherwise, we'll just keep going until I hear a stop. Concerns? Director Deloach, who was always concerned.
It's tricky language.
if it's okay to move ahead.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Sorry.
That's okay. There's some
I'm just
suspense
saying,
there.
it's just tricky, it's a tricky one.
For 501.3, compulsory attendance, any suggestions? I have one.
Go ahead.
The 180 days is my suggestion.
Oh,
Just because how we define a school year is changed. Right? Anything else? Bueller? Okay.
Do we want to be careful not to say 175 days, then go with 1080 hours?
That's what I was saying, it's probably hours that want to.
Some of the other language has changed, like Iowa Code, I think it's 257 something, says 180 days or 1,080 hours. So we
which is
could add
that
the
you
or
might wanna do
1,080
that.
hours.
The students is in session of 180 days or 1080 hours.
Yep, minimum of.
Okay. Where was 175, did somebody say? I don't see it. Okay,
That's what we're at now, I think is why Amy said that.
okay,
Our 1,080 hours, well, we're over 1,080 hours, but we're at.
okay.
who measures mental condition of children?
Where am I looking?
The second one, I'm just saying parents are
Yeah.
supposed to have their kids in physical and mental condition. I just thought it was interesting.
Parents should, yeah, evidence of the child's mental and physical inability.
Like, what does that look like? How do we know? We don't know what's in our policy day.
Well, we wind up lifting a lot of this from state,
Yeah, I
right out of state statute. So I think that's actually in the code.
I'm like,
And
what
I'm
the
not-
world is that?
I'm not sure what the legislators meant by that. So I'm not sure I want to interpret for them.
Or how long ago that was inserted too.
Or that may have been in there for a while.
Adoption in 1982.
Might it just be good to have Joe?
This is literally, just comes right out of state statute.
Right, I just want to make sure that since there's some changes later on, some of my suggestions have to do with No Child Left Behind being listed as our references.
Probably still in state statute.
Okay,
Yeah,
Yeah, it hasn't
Yeah.
changed?
yeah. The state hasn't caught up with the feds because we're a half a cycle behind them. So they
Okay.
just haven't caught up with that.
okay,
So
gotcha.
we'll have to look at this in a couple of years.
Yep, which we do. So all this stuff comes through every 3 years, which is why Brian says, hey, I've been through this before. Because he's been around long enough now that he's seen a second iteration of it. So if you're generous enough to serve on the P&G committee for an extended period of time, what comes around will go around, or the other way around.
And if you're generous enough to deal with suffering through me serving on it for an extended period of time. Or if you just like sitting in the audience for P&G meetings. So, all right, so the suggestion is 180 days or 1080 hours on 501.3. 501.4, in the first paragraph, I had a question about that one. Last sentence, first paragraph, recommendation of the superintendent shall be made annually based on study of program needs, the actual and potential enrollment of the district, and the enrollment capacities of each school building. We hear,
It's in our policy reports that if there are changes to be made,
right,
that I recommend those changes annually. Now, obviously, that's been a large part of board discussion for the last 7 years that I've been here.
Okay.
So there's only been 1 year, I think, where it wasn't a topic of discussion during the school year that necessitated me making a recommendation in May. It may have been your first year on the board.
probably.
But I think other than that, it's always been a topic of conversation, so it's never defaulted to superintendent making a recommendation. But again, I think that's, the intent there is to make sure that they are reviewed annually, and if changes need to be made, that they are brought to the board. And I think that's why we have one of our management information system reports says that I do that in May, so that if we haven't, for some unforeseen reason, had the opportunity to talk about attendance areas numerous times during the school year, that makes sure that there's at least one opportunity to do that.
I was wondering if there was an opportunity to perhaps codify other factors that you may weigh, such as operational costs or focusing on student achievement.
Those are in Appendix 5.
Got it.
where it talks about the process for setting attendance areas.
And they're also in superintendent directions 3J5 and 3J6.
Yes, they
that
are.
we'll be going over.
Yeah.
So as
But
long as it's
Appendix
codified.
5 is the one that's got the list of 20, and that's one of the,
I'm a big fan of having backup plans for backup plans.
there you go. Redundancy for redundancy.
Yes, be prepared.
So I would argue this says that you have to do it, that says how you do it.
Okay,
So
that's fine.
I think they're
That's a
both-
great way to put it.
Yeah.
Add big question marks next to that. 501.16, homeless children and youth. Again, I just had No Child Left Behind circled, but if it hasn't cycled through at the state level yet, then
Right.
we can,
We'll look into that and see if
think
they've got
Joe reviewed
updated
the last
references on there.
otherwise in 2019, you guys can deal with it.
Thanks, Brian.
You're welcome.
I guess one of my questions here is, like, this always makes me think about transportation.
Yes.
Like if there are kids who are, I know we provide transportation, try to keep them in their original schools, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
I'm just trying to think about, does this also include like DHS kids or no? Is
It
technically
depends.
removed from their home?
Yeah, it depends on how they've got them coded
Okay.
for DHS. Depends on what kind of placement they're doing for them. So some of them it would include.
Mhm.
Yeah.
But if it's, is there like a mileage that they can, you know what I mean? Like some, because
There-
I work over in the building, so
Yep.
sometimes a kid will be
There's no limit.
West Liberty or Tiffin. and
Yep, there's no
they-
limit. Yeah, so, you know, it's as goofy as it is, if you had a homeless kid here and they wanted to go to school in Council Bluffs, we'd put them in a car and send them to Council Bluffs.
Every day?
Yeah. Now pragmatically, no one
Yeah.
wants to ride 4 hours to Council Bluffs to go to school. So we have very, very few kids that choose to stay out of the district when they wind up homeless in the district. We've had, and I don't think it's been, while you've been here, Matt, we have had a couple of secondary kids who've had issues with Cedar Rapids and wanted to graduate from up there, but that's been a while. Yeah.
So do we do that the opposite way too? If it's a kid
Yep.
whose family, because they had no choice, so the
Yep.
whole situation moves,
Yep.
they can still come back to school?
Yeah, we could have had that with the closing of the apartments, where we
Yeah.
had some people that were displaced.
Right.
Had they moved outside the community, they would have had the ability to come back into the community. Whatever that sending district in would be obligated to transport them back in. And then there's actually a mechanism that allows me to approve their district to come into our district to do that transportation. So I sign off on that annually.
Onward and upward.
All right?
Student conduct, 503.1. Again, I just had No Child Left Behind.
Yep,
I know much of this is lifted from Iowa code again.
yep, we'll take a look at that, though.
Okay.
And this goes back to the, all the discipline stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
Such subjective language.
There's a lot of it, yep.
Expulsion, 503.2.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't have any concerns with that. I know that we don't generally expel students, but I know it has happened a few times.
I think the last time was 3 or 4 years ago. We had, yeah.
It's almost 5, I think.
5, yeah. It's a weapons incident. There's a couple of things that the state requires you to do that with. And even with kids who are expelled, we have alternative education placements for them. But we prefer not to use those unless it's, we prefer not to have to go through that process unless it's state mandated. So you'll only see them if they're weapons violations.
Okay. If a kid gets, just side note, if a kid gets expelled here though, What does that do for their
That
likelihood?
deprives them of the opportunity to go to another school
Right.
district if that school district chooses not to accept them. So
Right.
if a child has been expelled somewhere else and comes to our district, we have the right to say, no, we will not educate you here. We go through an investigation process. We've only had a couple of those in the last couple of years. We had a whole rash of them about 6 or 7 years ago, where we were getting kids that were coming to our district that have been expelled from other districts, but we haven't had that in some time.
Okay, thanks.
Do we need to take, I'm sorry, I have to bounce back to student conduct, I think. Do we need to take out, well, I see the word probation in there at the very last sentence.
Where are we?
Mm-hmm.
Not included.
503.1.
I mean,
Yeah.
do they still have detention in high school? Heard they don't have.
Do they still do detention in there for after school?
Yeah.
There are some instances where there are kids that are.
It's just not as popular as
right.
it used to be.
Yeah.
And what's the probation?
My guess would be probation would be like per an activity, that you can rejoin
Oh,
your
like a
activity for a
probation
probationary
period.
period of time, and then if there's a violation similar again, you'd be removed, so, or probationary period with privileges or something like that.
If you think about that, when we enter into pre-expulsion agreements, we'll have a lot of conditions in there that say these are things you shall not do, and those would fall in that type of probationary.
Okay, I'm just making sure, that just language was
Yep.
a little crossover and Julie just,
Right. It has two meanings.
yeah.
Which one are we on?
Okay, move ahead.
Yeah, sorry.
Okay.
I just-
No, don't be sorry. Don't be sorry. It's a good question.
Are we on 3-4? Or did I jump ahead of myself?
503.4, good conduct
Okay.
rule.
Just want to make sure I was in the right place.
Again, I know this is mostly Iowa code and previous state Supreme Court judgments, right? I didn't have any concerns with 503.4. Anybody? Paul?
Whoa. Sorry, I hit the wrong arrow.
503.5, corporal punishment, physical restraint. We do have administrative regulations regarding this policy, correct? That's the biggest thing that sticks out to me. It's the responsibility of the superintendent to develop those, so as long as we have them, which I know we do.
It's just sad.
But this is agreed. 505.1, student progress reports, midterms, finals, parent-teacher conferences. I didn't see anything with that. Paul?
The only question I guess I had was, it just says for the conferences at the high school are not individually scheduled. Is that also the case for junior high?
Yeah, this is the low bar. This is what you have, the minimum that you have to have. We do much more than this. So we meet all of their expectations and more from the state code.
Natasha? Anything on this one?
What, I mean, I'm just kind of looking at that. The progress report for elementary is just sent home. Is that what that means?
Yeah, they're sent home, but then they come out from, their timing comes out with the parent-teacher conferences. So not only are they sent home, but you'll find that you go to the school and the teachers will have a copy of it for the parents when they come in, and then walk them through it. And they'll do it with each of the disciplines that the kid's in, so you get your classroom teacher plus all the specials, guidance counselor and their ELL, special ed. Yeah, that second sentence in there, we're doing regular reports home to parents.
Things to look forward to, right?
So that means that anytime a student is doing poorly, there's notification, regardless of their grade.
Yep.
Okay. Now I gotta understand, I'm battling what people are telling me in my head with what I'm reading, so it's really difficult. I'm like,
Oh,
because you know, people will tell you, they're like, so you're just like, it's,
right.
I know how it is. You have a rule that don't mean everybody follow 100%.
That may be.
Well, I think that's a piece our principals work a lot on with our teachers too, so
Yeah.
that's something they try to drive home, that if students are performing poorly or if things aren't going well, that communication needs to be happening with parents. And like you said, just because the rule's there doesn't mean we're consistently doing it, but I think it's important that it's there because we do draw back to that and say, that's the expectation that needs to be communicated.
Right, clearly.
Phone calls,
Legislative
emails.
Language now, particularly K-3 and 4-6, we're doing a good job of following the intent of the K-3 law. So at least for literacy, I would just feel like we're in pretty good shape. But of course, I can't say that's 100% happening. But we've got parent contracts to back that up.
Do the kids have contracts? Do they have to sign? That's the one thing that's popping out of my mind is I'm concerned about the kids having these contracts, but sometimes the parents don't know that the kids have a contract.
No, that is done with the parent.
Okay.
And so we're doing sometimes actually the student if they're not at the conference. So we do our best to do that phone call ahead of time, depending on the timing of the conferences and when we get the universal screening information. We like to give the parent a heads up ahead of time, but if they need to formally do the contract, that's being done face-to-face at conferences. We'd rather have that conversation with them then. So that's the mode that we've been in the last year and a half, is to have that face-to-face conversation.
I'm gonna send the professor your way.
Absolutely. I want to know where
That was,
happening.
yeah, that was not what she explained to me, that her child had to sign that. And she didn't find out about it until the conference.
Well, it could be done, being done.
Yeah,
Very
so I'll let you know, I will forward you.
Good order.
'Cause I was just like, that doesn't sound quite right, but I'll ask. Okay.
That could,
Could be within a Title I compact.
there's also in our Title I buildings, school-wide Title I compacts that you have to follow, so it's a little bit trickier. Compacts and our early literacy contracts look a lot the same. Regardless, I don't think a student should be filling it out.
Yeah, they were in first grade, so that's why I was I'll ask about that, dude. It just
That is
reminded
okay.
me, because I was like, that's weird, but okay. I will send you that information so that you're aware. All right, moving on, sorry.
No apology. So graduation requirements, that seems pretty standard. Must have X number of credits.
Let me ask, just curious, and then, physical education, health, the 27 and the 87 for electives, where does this, aren't all trimesters 5 credits? I'm just wondering
Yes.
why it's 27, not 25. We take a tri-PE every year and then,
Because it used to be
It used to be every other day.
Yeah.
Once,
Yeah.
That's the 3.
Sure.
This needs to be changed.
So that
Yeah,
needs to be
that
changed.
Good
does.
call.
Because that's on
Edge.
yeah.
Man.
Got to be from the outside coming in to look at that and say,
Right.
wait a minute. Math
That's
doesn't
why,
work
exactly,
there.
though, because it used to be every other day.
Yep.
Back in the
So
they
that
did
needs
old
to turn
days.
to 25 or 30?
25.
25.
Some multiple of 5.
And then electives, can that be multiple or 5 too?
Like 85? Do
Which
we
is
have
gonna
one
change
credit?
your overall.
Yeah, and
concept.
that would have been because we had some every other day classes that met opposite PE.
Yep.
And that would have been why that was there
Why they
too.
would've had that.
So that would need to go up.
To 90.
That would go to 90.
And
So
people
our
would go
total
So
to
it's
credit-
kind of
is
funny, we
like-
never changed. the
Credits
3 and
don't
9.
change,
Okay.
but that mix changes because of the move from every other day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're always going to get
But
something
your
different.
total
Right.
is 309, so
Total.
that would change to 310.
Yeah,
That's what I was thinking. That's what I was thinking, I'm like, it has to go up.
Yeah.
Or something. Because 309 doesn't.
She's good.
yeah.
Well, I think we still say that, but yeah, you're never going to land on
That
that.
elective should have been 88 too.
And so, yeah. Do they have any one credit, like self-study things?
They've got trimester classes, that's it, yeah. Everything meets at least 5 days a week for a try.
Maybe the 87 just made it work out with 309, which probably should have been 310 anyway.
With this, do we ever inform our students who may be struggling that they can get a state high school diploma instead of just a district high school diploma?
Well, we work with them on, get a diploma from one of our high schools, one of the 3. They can get a diploma from us. There's a Kirkwood diploma that's out there.
But there's a
I don't know if we've
Iowa
ever-
high school diploma.
Yeah, I don't know if we've ever had kids that haven't haven't scooped in one of those 3 categories. Probably because we're working with them locally. And so usually if we can't get them through their high school, then we're getting them through the district. And then for kids who, for various reasons, are out of the district but in the community, then we've worked with getting them at Kirkwood. We've had very few kids that have not made it
I'm just thinking,
through.
sometimes
Yeah.
kids end up in that University
Sure.
of Phoenix program when there's a state of Iowa high school diploma that they could get that may be
Mhm.
better benefit to them than
Sure.
University of Phoenix. So, I mean, I don't know how we incorporate that, or I just, some of my advantages of working with other state people is that I know that that diploma's
Yeah.
out there, and it's not very,
That's an
it's on
opportunity.
state books.
Yeah, it's an opportunity for us to go through and work with the counselors
Yeah,
on
and
that.
it's less credit, so just a kid could be really close and maybe they can't do a online University of Phoenix because it's too much, and they could be close and they could still at least get a diploma.
Sure.
Yeah, we can look into that.
Mhm.
Because that might scoop some more of our kids that are kind
Yep.
of falling through the cracks, if, you know, if TAFE's not working for them, et cetera. So they might already have the credits, because I think it's less credits than what we have, the state one. Hey, I'm trying to get these kids graduated.
I'm with you on that.
Yeah,
That diploma makes a huge difference in their life outcome.
yep.
So I don't know, that probably doesn't go here, but it just made me think of it.
It might,
Good opportunity to
Go
have
there.
that conversation.
yeah, absolutely. I can't think of another place where it would go.
Yeah, I mean, even if it's just,
Right.
it could be a legal reference as a high school graduation opportunity because it is state code that they
Sure.
get a high school diploma. As we'll
Oh, it's
see
the
along-
high set. Is
Yeah.
that the one you're thinking of?
I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. We have some information sharing sessions to learn some more about that actually coming up, so, yeah.
Okay.
we're
It
working
has
on
a little fancy feel on it.
it. Yep, yep. I didn't realize it was that same term that you were, that's why it took me a minute, but it's, yeah.
So the 3 pages on student records access. Again, my only concern was the No Child Left Behind reference, but I know you guys are going to look into that.
Yep.
Anything to add, Director Ressler? Director Deloach?
Give me time.
It's 3 pages.
Hey, there we go. I thought about that, I forgot. Right.
It's pretty prescriptive about what you're
Yeah.
able
A lot of
to do.
FERPA pieces in here.
Yeah, and how, yeah. Directory information, 506.2, I had nothing for that.
Hold on one second.
You got it.
I found it. So my one question is, on page, I guess the second page of it, when it's talking about student records may be disclosed in limited circumstances without parents' student permission. So I'm kind of going back a little bit to when we were having folks come in and meeting with our students and stuff, like how much information is shared. And like, do they need to have something written, signed
Yes.
when they're meeting with?
Yeah, if you're not the custodial parent, you actually have to go through a process where the custodial parent has to sign off that someone other than they can see those records. And it actually has to be in the office on file in order for that to happen.
But I'm just thinking about like everyday information about our kids.
Technically, anything that's part of that student record has to be a part of that.
So that kind of goes back to when we have contracts with other folks. I worry about sometimes kids, what's that thing called that they get their grades on?
Power school?
Sorry.
Yeah.
Power school stuff, information. From my understanding, it's not supposed to be shared.
Nope,
If they have a discipline situation, that should not be.
nope.
But I think that's happening.
It is, and when we're aware of it, I use Power School as an example.
Yeah.
We've got lots of folks in town, Mathnasium, you know, and places like that that are doing tutoring for kids. And they will actually go through that process of signing off with the school so that they can look at the Power School assignments, because if, you're on Power School and there's grades, but there's also the assignments link, and so they can see that. But they actually have to go through, and the parents have to go through and grant permission. And that has to be done through the guidance counseling office, and they have to sign off on that.
Okay. So the people who are getting that information are clear about FERPA and if they can't share, 'cause that's what I kind of worry about that a little bit, like,
That's part of the sign-off. If you were going to say, let me see your kids' Power School things, then you have to first say yes, and then the counselor will tell me what my obligations are to keep that
Are you asking
confidential.
to know if there's access to discipline records in Power School?
yeah, like, I don't know what's.
Oh,
No.
no, that's all
So it's just
academics.
mostly their grades, academic, blah, blah, blah.
It's trimester grades, and then there's an assignment tab on there, so you can see what assignments have been turned in and which assignments. A lot of instructors front-load it, so you can see the assignments coming forward for the next couple of weeks.
The only thing our parents can see is the academic side of things, the grading.
Right.
Yeah, I know they can't see all
And
the
attendance.
little
And like-
And attendance.
Yes.
And attendance.
So
tabs.
That's helpful.
What we have access to.
Okay,
Where are you?
just making sure.
Yes.
Yeah.
You have more
Just
pictures.
remember, I'm always watching. So we're good with that? Directory information, 506.2, pretty straightforward. I did have one question about, I think it says place of birth. Directory information define the end, it may include the student's name, address, telephone number, date, and place of birth. Really?
And that's, those are all fields that are defined
Oh.
by the state.
Okay.
So notice it
Right.
says it may include those. You don't have to include
Okay, it's
those.
not a
in
shall.
your-
Yeah, because their weight and their height.
Yeah.
I'm like, what? Place of birth? All right. Just want to make.
So which ones do we include?
Boy, in our directory data, I only,
You do name, address, phone number,
as I say,
email.
that's usually what I'm looking at, so I can't remember what else is in ours, because I never go that far over in the sheet.
It's usually just the,
Because that's amazing, the weight and the height.
yeah. Well, and I mean,
I guess that's fast, but it seems but still.
right. Right.
Okay, sorry.
Student library circulation records. It is your responsibility to have a plan for loaning library.
Yep, we've got a
Do we
computerized
have a way
system.
that people can donate to the pantry to pay off some of their fees?
That's a good idea.
You can always donate directly. That's,
I'm talking about pay off some of their fees
are you looking at which one are you on?
That was
for the library.
Yeah. So we actually routinely in
And a
the,
can of food for a copy.
oh,
I don't know.
I was gonna say, we routinely get donations that are made in the spring to pay off kids' library fines before graduation.
There you go.
Not uncommon to see those come in.
It'd be nice if we could do that, because I mean, some of the student centers already do that with the food drives. It would be nice if kids could do that. Especially if they were donating anyways, and they got, $50 in fines. I don't know how I know that's a little harder to kind of maintain that, but.
So moving on, special health services and wellness, 5078 and 5079. Again, 3 pages of that.
I didn't think,
Every time.
wellness is always tricky because we have so many. It's like the longest policy ever.
I kind of lump these two together because they're along a similar theme, but the third paragraph of 507.9, foods available on school grounds, school-sponsored activities during the instructional day. How that relates to our Blue Zones initiatives. That's we're golden with that, it looks like.
So does that count for anyone who's coming into our school providing food? Or is it just groups, students, teachers?
But
Let's see, which part are you looking at there?
the third paragraph, 507.9, wellness.
Yeah.
So it does, the start of the paragraph does say dietary habits contributing to students' health status and academic performance. But you're talking about like the teachers?
I mean, I know people bring, I'm just saying sometimes people will bring in during the school day pizza or, I don't know, Chinese food or something. You know what I'm saying? I'm just saying,
Yeah.
does that count towards that? Not.
It depends on what they're bringing it in for. So for instance, if you were going to feed the school, it's got to comply with all of our USDA stuff.
Gotcha.
Okay.
If you're doing some special event, pizza with the principal, it does not have to.
Just check.
Yeah.
Okay. So, a couple changes, couple questions to follow up on, but otherwise the 500 policies are,
All right?
I mean, the main thing is the hours that
Yep.
Diane figured out. So, yay, for a new set of eyes. Appreciate it. Yes, sir.
One question on wellness policy.
Yes, sir.
The last paragraph about the wellness committee.
Oh, yeah.
So the people that are on that, the list that's there in the first sentence, a recommendation, or do we actually have one of those people on that wellness committee?
Okay, where are you at?
The last paragraph.
Last paragraph. I'm looking at
The
first.
wellness
Yeah,
committee
so-
comprises a
507.9.
diverse group of
Yep.
individuals from the district and community.
Actually,
see that,
they
don't we?
do one tall, one thin, one short, one round, you know, kind of thing. I mean, literally go through and make sure that they've got all those seats filled. I know Susie's been in charge of the wellness committee for, or was for quite some time. I think, is Kristen now in charge of it? And Kristen Peterson?
Oh, we better change this. Because it says the wellness committee is chaired by the district health services director.
I think Susie and Kristen both do it.
Are they
don't
co-chairing it?
I
Maybe
guess
they're.
I thought so.
Can we look into that?
So
Yeah.
Yeah.
district health services coordinator.
There isn't one, there's a coordinator now.
Oh, we probably
So we would
should
need to change that to
language
coordinator.
reflect.
Yeah.
So it'll reflect the reorganization.
Because I don't remember if she's chairing it. You know what, Kristen might be chairing the employee wellness committee. I think that's the difference.
Staff
I think that's-
wellness.
Yeah.
that's different than this.
Yeah, I think Kristen's doing the employee wellness committee.
is
This
for
is the
students.
district one, so Susie's doing this one, but you're
Susie
right.
does, and
Yeah.
We just need to change it.
Yeah, it's coordinator, not director.
Okay.
Get that fixed.
Look at that, good call.
We've actually struggled over time, Paul, to get people to fill some of these seats.
One tall, one short,
I should be quoted on that.
one star belly, one non-star.
That's what I was thinking.
All right, let's see. Moving on, we good?
Yeah.
All right, doing okay on time here so far. So Appendix 4, again, back to the ends policies, just a little different way of looking at it. We changed the wording at Diane's suggestion to state mandated assessments. I think that was your suggestion, wasn't it? Such as,
So we weren't sure.
Yeah, we don't know what they are yet.
It
Right.
says smarter balance, and then we weren't.
right,
you know.
so that just kind of covers everything.
Yeah.
Right.
And then I like the statement at the end. This is just, you know, kind of encompassing what we talked about last time, that we're just making a note that at the time of review, state mandated assessment is in transition, and so that's why it's kind of open-ended, just as a codicil, I think.
Good idea.
Oh yeah, you weren't here, you weren't.
I was not, I missed this fun.
It was fun. So that's, again, those highlighted areas and areas that have been struck are just reflective of our conversation. Kim was nice enough to put those together. Any suggestions to that before we move on? Because otherwise we'll plan on taking Appendix 4 back to the board to say, these are for your consideration and approval.
So those suggestions that I gave you before, can they be put in here then instead of some of this green stuff? Blue colors?
Maybe that just
Is that
becomes
what
all
it's
encompassing.
highlighted? I think that's why I will highlight it.
Okay.
Yeah. About the matched cohort, matched same grade and matched cohort group comparisons.
Yeah.
So we have to figure out a way to meld that into the 6th bullet point about the quartiles, right? Lower quarter? Or do we just strike that?
Right.
I thought the
So help me
blue was
understand.
I think the blue is what you recommended we get
I
rid
thought we were,
of.
I
That's what I
thought that was a
thought, too.
recommendation. I
Yep,
thought
and
that
the
was-
yellow were the changes.
Replacements.
Yeah, I thought the blue
That
was.
makes
Blue is
sense.
gone.
Bye-bye.
Yeah.
That makes
Because
sense.
you basically said, I don't think that we can get that we have
Okay.
that information for you anymore.
Mhm. So then we still have like under 5, there's a quartile in there.
Or I think we, don't we,
You're right, there is a quartile listed under 5, isn't there?
yeah. For the student performance match, same grade comparison, don't we do that? I thought we did that this year. Could we?
No, you're right. Cohorts and,
I thought we were able to see, but we were striking this for a reason. Was it reflected somewhere else?
let me see what I wrote.
Or were we moving it to somewhere else?
So this just lists the data that goes to your other academic ends policy.
Right.
I'm just throwing this out, do you need this since they're listed in the policy?
Or is it redundant?
That's what I'm.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Was it showing up somewhere else and we were striking it from here because it was showing up?
Are you talking about the whole thing?
I'm talking about the whole thing.
Yeah.
Well-
The whole appendix.
Oh.
Just
Help me, I don't understand what the appendix.
well, that's what I was waiting for.
We've had this discussion.
So usually an appendix is an appendix to something.
Uh-huh.
Right.
These are not appendices to anything.
Okay.
They are standalone documents titled appendices. So, which we discovered a couple years ago when we went through and tried to do some research on it. So it
They're more islands
So-
than appendices.
They're probably not.
when they were developed, they may have been an appendix to something. That went away a long time ago. So they may very easily be redundant with something that's already in policy. So it may either be an overlap partially or completely. So as you're looking at it, from that standpoint, if it's a complete overlap, we'd actually be better off not having it then, only because having it and failing to update it regularly could then cause contradiction later on if you've got two things that may speak at odds to each other. So
Is this an appendix to the ends policy?
no, we did check that. These
Okay.
are not appendices to the ends policies. They were developed
Should we
separately from that.
Make them appendices to that.
They're not all relevant to the ends policies, so
Right.
that doesn't work. That was something that was tried by a previous iteration of the board, and we could not get alignment there.
So,
So this piece may be completely redundant now that we've rewritten.
Right, because there's still
Right.
lack of need for it from anything we're saying.
Yeah, 'cause
Right.
we're still answering all this in the ends policy.
Right. And it may be that over time, they started here and they've now done this, and so
Yeah.
now we have full redundancy in Appendix 4, and it's no longer needed with the ends policy in place.
I mean, I would say that the stuff in blue, I thought that we were planning on striking that, and then your identification of the quartile portion of bullet point 5. If we can make one more change to this before taking it back to the board, there's no rush on it, it's just a routine, housekeeping. But if we make that change with the quartile thing in 5, then we should be,
The question is still remains, do we still need it?
Yeah, and I think that's what Paul was
do
asking.
we still
is-
need it?
The whole appendix?
Yeah.
I think we do. I think we do. I mean, do you think if we strike those things, is it,
I think the question they were asking is, oops,
what good do we have from it? Or is it just paper?
well, or is it already fully subsumed in the ends policies, especially with the changes that were made? I think that's.
Is there anything different you're saying in here that isn't already covered in your ends policies?
Right.
That would be a need for it?
Do we talk about the no child behind the every student succeeds in the ends policy? We don't? So, yeah.
I guess
So 7.
I just don't see striking it entirely and getting rid of a whole appendix, just because, like I said before, I'm kind of a fan of backup plan for a backup plan, so. I think if we come back to the board and say, we recommend striking Appendix 4, I think they say, what? If we just say, we recommend making the following changes so it's in accordance with our ends policies.
I think if we're going to strike the blue part, we should have a notation at the bottom. I see that due to the changes at the state level, but no.
It's money sections 3, 4, and 6, which we're going to get rid of. In that note at the end.
Sorry, look at 2. It's reading comprehension.
know, see language in here instead of writing that you have in the other one.
Yeah.
And we don't know if those reports are gonna look like smarter balanced either. I mean, they'll break out language and read comprehension. I mean, the one thing you could do is, I don't know, this would be like shortening it, but just use your first two, or even your first sentence, and even have it reflect, and maybe you don't want to go this way, maybe you'd rather have it revert back to your ends policies, but it could say something like that. An academic performance or reported handbook to the Iowa City Community School District Board of Directors as outlined in the every student succeeds act. That way, that's related to that, and your ends policies is related to.
Okay, because I shut the computer down out there.
Yeah. Or no, our ends policies are
I
standard.
gotta pick this one up.
Okay.
Should probably do that shortly.
Well, I think the real thing is because the ends, okay, so one thing is supposed to be about ends policies, the other thing is supposed to be about the reporting of our compliance with the ends policies. Appendix 4 is supposed to be, right?
I thought Steve said it wasn't.
Okay, well, it says Appendix 4 academic ends policies data reports, right? So no, they're not tied.
Right.
They're not tied officially, but they are tied in subject.
So the ends policy is what we have to
Right.
do. This one is saying that it needs to be
Again,
reported
one's
to the
one's
board.
the,
Yeah, sorry.
one's the what and one's the how.
Yeah, but they were not developed together.
No, I get
Right.
that. I get that.
It's response to.
The ends policies is what we're gonna do. Appendix 4 is how we wanna do it.
Yeah.
So we just need to make sure that the Appendix 4, actually, the language,
So much-
Mirrors.
Mirrors the other. Can I take this and work on it? And
bam, love it.
The notes from the October meeting say that Appendix 4 was reviewed as well as recommendations from Diane, omitting 3, 4, sections 3, 4, and 6. She recommended removing them from the policy and then revisiting this document when the Smarter Balance assessment takes over. So knowing that we were going to do that, I said to Steve, weren't we going to wait on this until we knew for sure what the testing was going to be? So maybe we do have time for.
So maybe before we spin the
We'll
wheels.
look at it.
just-
it's up to you guys. There's just so much of this, I think, that needs to be reworked. That
Yeah.
we could eliminate it and replace it with something that aligns directly with your ends policy reporting,
Right.
and/or something that aligns with the Every Student Succeeds Act,
Okay.
and/or aligns with Smarter Balance.
Okay. So maybe we
Whatever
can
you
keep,
guys would like.
I think we hold off.
yeah,
So we just get some, I think we
Just
need to
because
get some more
everything's-
clarification about what needs, because we don't really know all that we need with the changes in the law and with the changes in the testing to be able to say what it, we know that we want to report to the board about how our students are doing academically.
Right.
Like, we know that.
Right.
And this is explaining kind of some specifics of, we want to know this, and we want to know this, and we want to know this. So I get that, why that's there that way, because it's kind of like a appendix written to say, yes, you have to do this, but we want these specific things reported to us. So I think we still want some of this information. I just think maybe this is a bigger conversation than we realize. And that we need to have more information so that we can change it. If we need.
Well, I can go back and give you more detail on the reports that would be connected to the ends policy. We can start there, and then as we get Every Student Succeeds Act, we might start at, keep adding.
Can we figure out what we can do versus, because some of this I know was, you know, we had Brentwood
Right.
that could do some of this stuff, so I
Yeah.
think it would be helpful if we figure out what we can do independently.
Sure.
And make sure that that's a part of this.
both what we can do and what, like Dan said, what could
Could
would
come
be-
out of those other tests.
Right, what would be, you still don't know about every student's, or the smarter balance or whatever, so you still don't know about that, but you could still look at the other ends the actual ends policies and at least make suggestions as far as language there, right? But then everything else just stays in flux, lies in flux until we know more about smart balance and ACT Aspire, whatever.
Is it okay if I, rather than trying to piece and change this word and that word, can I just replace it with a policy, a suggested policy? Do you understand what I'm saying? That we
Yeah.
delete this and replace this as the new?
Yes,
Okay.
yes,
In my head, I went to a chart like, this is what we know, this is,
yes.
Okay.
you know, what's what we would like to do, and what's what we could possibly do if we get this information from.
Can you tell me by when? When's our?
Oh, we don't have this
February
meeting.
13th.
February 13th.
So, in the interest of time, since the rest of the board is trickling in to do our work session, we're clear on that, Diane, for Appendix 4? Okay. So, for Appendix 8, I just want to, I put pen to paper for the charter for the Education Committee, which we were going to cycle back on and add the addition of a ICEA member. Operations and, operations, there was a very minor change. Policy and governance, again, very minor. Well, we removed the engagement portion of it, and I'll come back to that in just a second. But then the Financial Oversight Committee, I kind of wrote this from scratch. I took Craig's thing and edited a whole bunch out because Craig's thing was the framework for the old Finance Committee and the focus of the Financial Oversight. So could you please review that? We can cycle back to that.
Sure.
Okay. And I apologize that I just got that out this weekend. I did want to just ask for input on 3J5 and 3J6, which were just to tidy up from last month. And if this looks like it's going to be more than a 5-minute discussion, then we can always move that out, but I'd like to get that one done. We tried to change some of the verbiage to be more opportunity-based language.
Yep.
Does that look
Looks greatly improved.
okay? So some of it was really kind of heavy to wade through, and I kept saying, now what are we saying here? So I just kind of cleaned it up so it says the following access to opportunity gaps. And then identified opportunity gaps in the chart. Low, medium, high. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah.
Okay. Is that more in line with what we're thinking for 3J5 and 3J6 to take to the board? We've been hemming and hawing about this one for a while.
I think, yeah, it should go back to the board. If it needs to come back, it needs to come back. I mean,
My big thing is that, with our weighted resource allocation, I'd like to get something approved and done and out of committee. Yeah.
it's true.
And then again, we can cycle back this, but the last thing we wanted to talk about today was advocacy and engagement. You had mentioned, Latasha, at the last meeting that, if these are things that the engagement committee, advocacy and engagement committee used to do, we don't want this to go away. This should be something that we're all doing as a board. So my suggestion was to basically take the language from advocacy and engagement's charter and include it under 3B of board governance and just make the subheading 5. Right now it says board governance, here's 1, 2, 3, 4 what you should do, and then make 5 advocacy and engagement and include all those for all board members. Say we should all be doing this, we should all be talking to our legislators, we should all be advocating for the district, we should all be facilitating community input. Is that what you were thinking?
Yeah, I think we don't want to lose that. I think there should be an I, maybe, about how do we communicate this back to one another.
Okay.
Because we could be doing this thing, but then, it's fine when, we're individual people, but like, it would be nice to know maybe that comes out in our reports,
Sure.
director reports.
So, yeah.
But just some way that people know that these are the things that I've done to, advocate for the interests of our students, or, you know what I mean?
Sure. But I agree that, if we're going to strike that from a charter of a committee that doesn't exist anymore, it shouldn't disappear.
Whiteboard's disconnected in here.
Vitally important
We still need to do it.
Sorry.
We won't always,
It's a laptop.
all of them always be here.
Yeah, you said somebody was running, they were probably running the smart board off the laptop.
That's
Okay.
been in here for 2 weeks.
Well, if that's the case, I'm going to recommend that we not
You can
add
let- you can let
anything
Kevin know.
to our February 13th. If we go into agenda setting, I'm going to say that we don't add anything, that we just circle back on some of this stuff.
Yep.
Wading through the 500 policies took a little bit of time. So, are there any other suggestions if there are additions you want to make to February, I'm okay with it, but I would just suggest that we not, because it's just getting longer and longer.
I'm fine with that.
I think we need to finish up this.
Yes, but I think this will put us on track, aside from other things that the board may ask us to do. I think this is going to put us on track to finish the calendar of work before May.
Yeah. So we do have a lot of stuff we have to look
Yep, we do. Cool? All right. So everybody's here, the rest of the board's here, so motion to adjourn. All in favor, say aye.
at. Aye.
Aye. All right. I think Paul said.